What we're going to do now is talk about IT to enable job creation, employment skills and entrepreneurship. Because technology can make a huge difference. And this afternoon we've got three speakers. Karmath Dangol, the president from Cloud Factory. We've got Sonika Mananda, who's a software developer at the Microsoft Innovation Centre in Nepal, and I think you all know Alan by now as well. So we've got three speakers this afternoon. I've asked them all to share their stories and their experiences and their advice. We'll come back together for a few questions from the group at the end. But Karmath, I'll hand to you and I'll get your slides up.
Thank you. Hopefully you guys are now all sleepy, right? You just had a lunch, so I can just talk about anything you guys are not going to understand, right? Was that the plan? So, I think that since you guys just had lunch, I thought we should start talking about a movie. One of my favorite movies. I'm sorry, you came? Oh, you're also, okay. So, one thing that I really like about this movie, The God Must Be Crazy, is how it all sort of starts, right? So it's a contrast between the Bushman and the developed, which is, I believe it's South Africa someplace. So there's a phrase, it's narration that goes on early on. He talks about how the civilized man, rather than trying to adapt to the environment, he starts changing the environment, right? Sort of starts by, what does he do? Builds roads, right? Builds cities, adds complexity, and then pretty soon we have to spend half of our life learning just to survive, right? So why are we talking about this? Any idea? Maybe I should ask Akar, my colleague there. He's pretty busy probably tweeting. So the reason I think that is, I want to sort of start from here is, I want to sort of give you guys a little bit of flashback and how it all started, right? How the IT is changing all of our lives. And how that sort of relates to creating the jobs, how it sort of changed our life in terms of how we learn, how we live, how we sort of start companies, and how we make money. So I think that's sort of the way that I sort of laid it out. So with that, now sort of fast forward to current time, and just to get here, I have to go to Bing, put in the address, figure out how the traffic is. And it turns out that today is a holiday, so there was no traffic, so I was able to make it here early. So now, right, our lives are getting complicated, right? We have so much need for data all the time. When we go to a store, we have too many choices, right? Same kind of thing, oil, there's probably 500 different versions of oil that you can get. Different prices, different composition, you know, sunflower oil, olive oil. And back when I was young, there was only one oil, that was mustard oil. It was easy, right? Now there's so many different choices. Then, let's talk about a little bit in terms of how the IT sort of plays into this. Now this is one of the things that I pulled it out from Did You Know? So basically sort of slide talks about how long, how many years did it actually take to reach the audience of 50 million. Obviously, one of the technology things that we started with was radio. And for that, it took 38 years. And as we progressed to TV, it only took 13 years. Still a lot, huge number, 13 years. But then, by the time internet came, the number was only 1/4, only 4 years. After that, iPad, 3 years, Facebook, 2 years. Now I probably don't know what the next is. That's probably going to be less than a year, and so on and so forth. So not only that the complexity has increased, but the need for data and connectivity has also increased. So we're getting more and more connected. So how is this good? It looks all bad, right? We had a simple life, like a bushman. Now we're at a point we need to go to Bing just to get anywhere. How is this good? IT, has it really made our life easier? Who thinks it's actually made our life easier? Okay. What about it made it complicated? It's sort of both, right? So I don't know whether Akar had this slide or not, I actually stole it from his. So this is sort of what happens in 1 minute on the internet right now. Huge amount of data, right? So we all have our virtual person on the net, whether that be in any kind of a social media, anything that we interacted with, anything that we posted, news media, they're also online. So the data is what's driving it. Again, it's all sort of revolves around connectivity, need for data, and the speed where you need to access it. So the volume of data that we're collecting is growing exponentially all the time. And because the volume of data, the needs that we have, is because we want to take some action based on those data, right? So to be actionable, the data must be usable. For it to be usable, it has to be searchable. So that's why, right, Microsoft's Bing, Google's Google search makes a lot of money. And it actually helps us finding information. So how does all of this information sort of gets to a point where it's actually searchable, then usable, and then actionable? Any idea? I mean, if we look at our own country, right, when we do anything with the government, most of the time we have to fill out a form. But yet, some of that information later on then can be accessed through web. Even on passport, I think nowadays you can actually find out when your passport is actually ready. But when you actually submit, it sort of starts with paper, then goes to sort of electronic version, and also sort of comes back in the paper. I'll sort of switch a little bit. So I don't know who actually coined this phrase, but our CEO Mark Sears says a lot. So I just thought it's relevant here. It's that talent is equally distributed around the world, but unfortunately the opportunities are not. Especially for most of us living in Nepal, we sort of can relate to this, right? Just like today's youth, I was also looking for better opportunity. I went to States, got educated, and came back. But that still is going on. But why do you think we believe that talent is equally distributed? Any ideas? Do you actually believe that talent is equally distributed? A lot of potentials, you're right. The lacking part is the opportunity part, right? So that's where the IT comes in my mind. Because what IT does, right, it actually creates a level playing field. So before sort of the internet and the progress of IT, the Western world had it all. So if you're looking for information, you have to be physically present in that particular location. Mostly the libraries, right? Nowadays, libraries are online. We all have access to the same internet. Whether we're accessing it from Nepal versus Harvard versus AIT versus Stanford, it's the same internet. Sure, they have a faster internet. So when they're watching some video, that probably just starts playing, it doesn't buffer. For us, it's slower. But the speed is getting better, right? So the information, like when I was actually applying for US universities, I actually had to start from paper, looking for colleges. I had no idea where they were. And there were books this thick, had a list of colleges. I would randomly write a letter, go to a post office, drop it off, and then wait for somebody to respond months at a time. Nowadays, you guys can basically just go online, fill out a form, and before you even log off, response will be there. It's very, very fast because the connectivity does that. So it actually is creating a level playing field. From the education side is that part. If you look at it from the business side of it, IT has also created a level playing field. Talk about eBay, talk about Amazon, talk about any of these e-commerce sites. Now you can actually compete with big giants. I'm sure Akar has talked about how you can sort of leverage the social media to compete with them, right? So you don't actually have to spend any money to start promoting your company, your NGOs, INGO, your cause, whatever it is. You can just set up a Facebook page and start sort of competing with that. Obviously, it depends on how you reach out and how you sort of promote that, but actually that information can be available for free. Now you can compete with companies like Facebook themselves on Facebook. So with all the changes that's coming around, so everybody's sort of looking for low-cost locations to do their work, right? Because now the world is flat. Everybody's looking for less overhead because everybody's trying to make money and increase their profit. Obviously, that sort of leads into automation. And the last is they only just want to pay for the work that's actually done, rather than the old model of hiring full-time staff to sit around whether there's work or not. So, give you an example of a receipt. When you actually travel for companies, a lot of times in Nepal you get a per diem, but in most of the Western world, there's a concept called expenses. You have a limit, so you expense, you go pay your own money, then you collect the receipts and submit that. That used to be done through the paper. Now with everyone carrying their smartphones, it's so much easier just to take a picture, right? So you take a picture. Technology is getting to a point where it can decipher most of that information automatically. So the automation has got to that point, but not 100%. So what do? Because you actually paid 700, but it's sort of read as 200. Well, you're not going to be happy, right? If the company only gave you 200 back. So for those kind of work, that it still requires a human interaction. For that, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Cloud Factory and how that sort of ties in. So we have a product called IntroText. So that can actually be used to capture information from structured or semi-structured forms, images or data. Okay? It can be on paper, but actually when you take the picture, it sort of becomes digital. But it's digital, it's not actually searchable, right? It's just a picture. So since it's not searchable, you cannot actually take any action on that. So that's one of the things that we do. Another one, similar concept on audio video, just like my talk here, right? If it looks like it's been recorded, but you can't actually search on the video. Whatever I'm saying, you cannot search. Again, voice to text is getting better all the time. Similar problem exists from an accuracy perspective. We also have a product called Speaker Text that does exactly that. And one other thing that we have is what we call caption box, which actually allows you to post the caption, which is the text that's extracted from the audio on your website, which then search engines can index, which again will allow you to connect. So what is Cloud Factory? Cloud Factory is the way we like to define it, is a human-assisted platform or solutions. So it's a combination of both, right? So we have developed a technology that sort of tries to read as much as it can automatically. And when that is not enough, we actually leverage the humans to actually do the rest of the work. So we also have a pretty big purpose, is to connect 1 million people in the developing world to basic computer work and raise them up as leaders to address poverty in their own community. So 1 million, right? So it's trying to create employment is what we're trying to do here. At the same time, serving our clients. So our goal is to actually hit that by 2018. And once we hit that, we'll be the 9th largest employer in the world. What do you guys think about that? Quite a big goal, right? Here's where we are right now. Currently, we've already paid out $1.5 million to our cloud workers. numbering 4,500. We have a staff of 130 in 4 countries. And it all started right here in Nepal. Do you guys believe that? Even I had a hard time believing this when I saw this slide, when I was actually looking for a job and wanting to join this company. So you might wonder why. And this is where the whole full circle comes in, right? We started sort of from the Bushman type thing, from the movie, God Must Be Crazy, and we're trying to sort of say, why Nepal? We sort of talk about what is the opportunity? Because of IT, the opportunity now actually exists. Because there's a large number of IT graduates who are qualified to actually do some work, right? By getting there. Labor cost, obviously, is a lot less than in the Western countries. Running a business, same thing goes, right? It's a lot cheaper to run a company here. At the same time, start your own company and fail. I had my own startup in the States, and all the time I was worried about how I'm going to pay my bills next month. Here, when I ran my own startup, I was living with my parents, didn't have to worry about it. If I failed, I would still get to eat, have a place to sleep. So the options that we have here is actually better than in the West. Because we can fail multiple times. Whereas in the West, and if you fail once, you might actually have a hard time sort of picking back up again. Because you might be in so much debt. So the entrepreneurship activities are increasing. There are a lot of events that are happening. I think there's also going to be talks today, right, on entrepreneurship. But these actually happen. It already happened on that, right? So I'm not going to talk about that. So the other thing that's happening because of all of these things that's happening is the reverse brain drain is starting to happen. I guess you could call me as an example because I also sort of came back, right? Again, because of all of this, the IT professionals are growing, as well as the IT companies. So, how are we sort of, IT is helping do all of this? How many of you guys actually heard of Mechanical Turk? Anybody? That's our competitor, so I listed there. They have a very similar model as we do. Uber, I'm sure some of you have heard Uber. Anybody? So, why is this here? Do you know what Uber actually does? With Uber, you don't actually have to own a vehicle anymore. Using technology, you can just basically push a button, and either a cab or a private car will pick you up and take you to your destination. Right? Now, IT is actually enabling the person or individuals who have the means to actually earn extra cash. If they have the means, they can do that. Same thing is true from Airbnb. What Uber is doing for cab is doing, Airbnb is doing for hotels. So if I have an extra room, I can rent it out. So entrepreneurship is growing there. Uber is not in Nepal, but Airbnb is. So if you log in there, you can actually look for hotels, you'll find some. And they're good deals. You get to be in someone's home. And what a better way to sort of explore the country than to actually live with somebody and also get the culture, right? Kickstarter is another one. That might be sort of relevant to this crowd, right? To actually leverage the crowd to actually raise funds. If you have a good cause, people have raised millions, sometimes in very little time. ELADs is another way we can get things done. There are a lot of IT engineers in Nepal who are sort of working part-time to make extra cash or actually making full-time living just doing that. Building websites to any kind of skilled work. Code School and Khan Academy are the two that actually is leveraging the IT to teach. So you can actually go online and start learning and then use that, right? The cycle sort of starts from there. You can learn using technology. You can sort of start growing your skills using technology, earn money, or start your own company. And these are some of the ones that are happening in Nepal. I'll go quickly as we're running out of time. And there are some of the IT companies that I've listed here. Thank you.